Bring to our stage AFS Artistic Director, Richard Linklater. Thanks, Lars. Man, I am so excited to see these films tonight. We can't do a 30th anniversary and not, honor the early days, the first films that we ever showed. At the Adobe Theater, we showed 6 programs of shorts. That's just kind of where we started. So 30 years ago, this month, we were showing these first 3 films as part of a shorts by great directors. The first show we had done in October '85. We'll be showing one of those films later, Scorpio Rising, and then the other film we're showing, The End, later. That was part of a beat film program. But these first 3 were in the second program, and it was just as all early programming, just films I really wanted to see. I'd always heard about these. David Lynch films and this Martin Scorsese film called The Big Shave. We're going to show that first. And these 2 David Lynch films, that kind of quasi-student films, but he wasn't really a student, I think, when he made them. But The Alphabet and The Grandmother. Lynch was a painter who kind of felt he wanted to see his paintings move. He came to filmmaking from that. I don't think he was a film nerd kid. He was a visual artist. And you'll see in these films, how many of you have ever seen those films, Alphabet and The Grandmother? Yeah, so it'll be fun to see them projected large, but if you haven't seen them, they're really amazing. It's in both of these cases coming up, it's fascinating to see early work by these directors who go on and do, amazing things. And The Grandmother, I think Lynch he made The Alphabet, it's very short, I think for him, it was about like the fear of learning or something, but you'll see it all in there. But The Grandmother, the next film, he got a grant from AFI, and that's why the film study, it's so important, these grants, because you just never know what happens, but this is a good example. Lynch had made this film, The Alphabet. He sent it in and had a script to this other thing. AFI gives him a $5,000 grant to make The Grandmother, which to me is his first, just an amazing work. And then due to the strength of that film, he goes to AFI, and Eraserhead grows out of that. So these 2 films, you kind of see the birth of a filmmaker out of a visual artist. And Grandmothers, it's just amazing. It's all there. It's kind of the horror and the innocence, and it's probably his first collaboration with Alan Splett. The sound is amazing, and it's just, okay, and then Scorsese, The Big Shave is just one of the great short films ever made. What I've always heard was they were doing a series of, this is 1967, the Vietnam War is raging, and someone commissioned some shorts about Vietnam. So this film you're going to see, it's funny, I think other people film protests on streets and stuff. This film never leaves the bathroom, but it's pretty amazing. It's simple and incredible. So, let's enjoy these 3 shorts, and then the next 2 films, I'll introduce those right after. So, and guys, it's just going to be so fun to have a 16mm projector purring in the back of the theater. It's been a long time. So, okay, see you guys later. Enjoy these 3. I was always inspired by the story that the grant panel at AFI saw The Alphabet. And they had all these categories. There were documentary films, there were features, and they said, well, whatever the fuck that film was, let's give that guy a grant. And he makes The Grandmother, so. Whatever category these films are in. I just think that's so inspiring. You grow yourself a grandmother. It's beautiful, genius. I realized watching these, there's very little dialogue tonight. Or what you would call English. There's communication, but not. The 2 films up next, well, I think the last one, Scorpio Rising, there's no dialogue, but it's notoriously all these pop songs. The film's from 1963, so it's this wonderful, just jukebox, movie. It's incredible. But the film we're going to watch next, The End, is from 1953, San Francisco, by the Beat filmmaker Christopher McLean. I think these films they're interesting contrast. I don't think there could be a more famous American avant-garde film than Scorpio Rising. It's very influential, very widely seen. It was helped along. Well, I think Kenneth Anger's a notorious character. He's written those books, Hollywood Babylon, kind of a larger-than-life character. It probably helped couple court. I think the film was, there was some arrests and they took the film. You'll see it's, by today's standards, you would go, what the hell? But back then you have to realize, well, homosexuality is illegal, there's nudity. If you look, there's blink and you miss it, nudity. But, it was, at the time, it really offended people. And so it got even more publicity. I think even the American Nazi Party sued him for desecrating their flag. So the film's all about rebels, whether it's James Dean or Marlon Brando or Jesus or Hitler. I mean, it's an incredible movie, Scorpio Rising. I love it. I love that we're showing it last. But the end is it's more special to us, I think. My roommates at the time, fellow film freaks, Brecht Anders and Lee Daniel, we heard Stan Brakhage, the great, American, avant-garde filmmaker of 50s, 60s, 70s. He was guest lecturing at Rice at the time, and he had a public program. So we all got in a car and drove to Houston and watched. He showed a couple hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours of films, just at the Rice Media Center, and the end was one of them. He had his own print, and we ended up going to his class the next day. He showed some more films and taking him out to lunch or whatever, and I ended up recording him talk, because this film struck me and all of us. It's like, wow, what the hell, it's amazing. And he knew Chris McLean and had a lot to say about him. He had been in San Francisco at that time. And this film, I just hold in high regard. I haven't seen it in so long, but I can't wait to watch it with you guys and see how it holds up. I'm thinking it'll be as kind of crazy today as it was 30 years ago, as it was 60 years ago. Apparently, and this is all coming from Brakhage, when they premiered this in '53, at Frank Stofferger's Art and Cinema, kind of a place where they showed experimental films at the time. When it premiered, he said it precipitated a riot. I said, well, what's that? He's like, chairs thrown and all that stuff. So a romantic notion that a film, premiere could do that. But he was known as the, Artaud of North Beach. And he made 4 films of kind of, kind of a cult figure, but a very obscure film. No one really knows it. Not too many people know him. I was in a large audience in San Francisco showing a film a couple years ago, and one of the questions was, what's your favorite San Francisco film? I said, well, I know you're supposed to say like Vertigo or Bullet or something, but I'm going to say The End by Christopher McLean, and like 4 people in one section went apeshit, but no one else out of the 900 people had ever heard of it. I said, well, check it out. It's your own. It's a beautiful depiction of this city. He really captures it. But more importantly, I think the film, to me, it's a great existential film. You could call it 6 characters in search of a film. It's funny. It's just this narrator. At one point, he seems to know everything. He's introducing characters, giving you their innermost thoughts. At another point, he claims to know nothing. He invites you into the film quite a bit. So get ready, the screen goes black, it's a challenge, he'll just talk over it. It's wildly, modern, and it's, according to Brakhage, it was the first film made that kind of in the shadow of Hiroshima, Nagasaki. The end is the end. It's 6 people on the last day of their lives. In fact, the last day of all of our lives, but they don't know it. So it's each of their stories. I haven't seen this in a long time, but it all kind of circles around. And it's just beautifully done, brilliantly edited, black and white, color. Again, the narration. I just think it's just really out there, and it's not polished by any means, but it's the perfect, I think, form and content to meet the form of it. And he said McLean was a poet, and people who knew him, he was just this kind of crazy character, were surprised he ever could get it together to make a film. And he made these 4 films and died kind of young, but this is his masterpiece. And so let's enjoy that. And then Scorpio Rising after, like I said, it's a more notorious film, but we're just really privileged to see these 2 films on 16 millimeter, no less. I hope the prints are decent, but let's just, go back in history, and this is how, this is how we showed them, You have a projector in the back of the theater. The sound isn't usually quite as good. The 16 millimeter range is a lot less than what we just watched. That's the advantage of, digital. You get better sound, better, brighter image, whatever. But, this is how it's been done throughout film history. So this should be fun. I hope you enjoy. Are we talking after?
Yeah, we'll do like a 10-minute little discussion.
Lars and I get up, and it's not like we're lecturing anymore. We're just open for discussion. I'd be curious to see what you think of these films. I hope you find the humor in the end. I've always thought it's crazy, and it's really funny, and very moving, too. In The Big Shave, I was surprised I didn't get... I always thought The Big Shave was really hilarious. I don't know. It was a little subdued tone tonight. I don't know. Depends on what's going on in the world at the time, I guess. But anyway, so... Okay, enjoy these 2 films, and we'll be around after. Thanks. And how about that restoring the loop? That's just something you don't hear anymore. At the beginning of Scorpio Rising,
you have to do that with a DCP.
You don't see that. Yeah, you sure don't. Sure don't. I don't know. I love it though. Restoring the loop.
For some reason, it's like magic when you see 16 millimeter.
I know.
You just can't imagine that. Like that's coming out of that little projector, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, especially Scorpio Rising. I love the way the film stocks looked in the early '60s. The color, the Kodachrome. That's a beautiful film stock.
And he Kenneth Angers, he's such a careful filmmaker. Every shot counts so much in his films.
That thing has a great pace to it, doesn't it? It starts inside, slowly works outside. I've seen that film a lot. It's always a little different every time I see it. It's always very, I think it was a perfect film looking back. Our very first program, I remember, it fit into our program, Sex and Blasphemy and the Avant-Garde. That film has both, I guess. I remember Lewis Black, I went to him, we were starting this program, and he says, you got to go talk to Chuck Shapiro. He was a guy who programmed at Cinema Texas, and he just, in the film department, and I don't know, I guess he was a grad student or something, maybe a little older, like all those Chronicle people, film freaks. And he told me how to do it. It's like, okay, you rent the film, but you pay for one rental, but you actually show it several times. Yeah. If you do that, you'll never have a second screening. It's just they're too expensive. Like how to rip off the distributor a little bit. He says, and then you need a catchy title. The first program, because I had these films, call it like Sex and Blasphemy and the Avant-Garde. I'm like, yeah, that's a good name. Just having sex in the title brought in a lot of people, and that's pretty mild. But we actually did have some films that would get the theater owner arrested. A couple of them. But yeah, that got us off to a good start way back when. And then The End played in our third program, Beat Films, which was just kind of a collection of films we consider kind of beatnik. The Robert Frank film, Pull My Daisy, and there was a Brakhage film, and a couple others, but a lot from the San Francisco area. So that was a cool program.
So we should do another short film program.
Oh,
right?
we could do a lot of short film programs. I mean,
Can-
the film side, we've
can-
shown
can we do
so
that?
many shorts over the years. Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways to go. This is kind of a, it's a fun little compilation, but
Yeah,
there's
it's
a lot of...
and the same people that you used to rip off, those same companies that used to rip off, 30 years ago, are still around, like Canyon Cinema.
Yeah, we didn't rip them off
Filmmakers Co-op.
so bad they went out of business. we ripped them off just not. No.
So we're still ripping them off 30 years later.
They were used to showing films at universities and museums who had money, and I was like, hey man, I'm paying for this. We got nothing. They're like, okay, they'd give us a little break, but it was, it was tough getting off the ground. But we got lucky. We did very well to start. There wasn't anything like it in Austin at the time.
So when when I see these short films, when you see a feature film, you're like, oh, that's such a whole thing. You'd have to get so much money together, and you have to get people together and people to fund it. When you watch these short films, I think there's a much more immediate do-it-yourself connection. You're like, I could do that.
Yeah, you feel like every film is kind of a home movie.
Yeah.
Anger's hanging out with bikers. He kind of was in, that whole scene, and he just kind of manipulated. I think Chris McLean, that felt like just kind of his own backyard. Those were obviously his friends, and
you could do it. Even Lynch, you feel like, how do you pull that together? Probably some fellow, film student type people, and you just do it. So, and like Scorpio Rising, I said it's very influential. I think primarily in its use of music, and he didn't pay for any of that music. He just used it. Those were all huge hits. Not all. It's funny how history treats, like some of those songs are pretty obscure now. Some you hear on the radio, if you get in your car tonight, you might hear some of them. So, but yeah, I think that kept it from being an above ground film just because he never got the music rights. But it's such a great use of all those. And I think you see that influence shortly thereafter through the 60s and 70s using pop music, Easy Rider,
Scorsese,
American Graffiti, Mean Streets. You just see its influence is huge, I think, on that front.
But it's also one of those things when we talk about these things that had like these incredible influences, like that's not the only reason it's important. Like it's important for what it is. Like it's important for being as great as it is, not just because it launched
that
so
it
many.
Exists,
Yeah.
Yeah, that you'd have that impulse to make it. It's crazy.
So looking back to like the first films we watched, which seemed like a million years ago, like the those David Lynch films, it's incredible to see how true to his vision he stayed.
Yeah.
He is even now.
You can't help but be yourself. That's why anybody who thinks they're going to be the next David Lynch, like, well, good luck. He's like 22, 23, 25 making those films. Like, that's the singular artist that will never be replicated. Just wow. Wow. No one can do that today,
So I'm wondering if anybody in the first of all, I'm going to figure out some way to give this away to somebody tonight. It's from UT Press. How art is used in film, cinema, and painting by Angela Dalvash.
It's a good night for that one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I chose this one deliberately for that. So at some point, maybe whoever has like a great question or something. This is not like a competition, but we'll just work it out.
Yeah.
So who has a thing they would like to contribute to our discussion tonight? Anybody?
Question
or
more
just
about?
Nope. Everybody's knocked completely flat, except right over here. We know this guy.
Could be for both of you. Insert yourself into the film.
Who are you? Well, apparently all those characters, for people who knew Chris McLean, said he's all of them. Those are portraits of himself. The poet, all of them. So, who are you?
Yeah. I'll go 4.
Yeah, I'm number 3.
Anybody
I'm
else
the
got
guy who wants to go to the leprechaun?
Yeah, right over here.
And
our Canadian friend.
The end seemed reminiscent of Albert Camus and The Stranger. Does that connect?
yeah, well, it's 53. 52, 53. It's probably the air
Like the beach?
they're breathing. But I think that film's just, I can't tell, is it way ahead of its time? Just even the editing, I don't know. I mean, maybe you go to Russian avant-garde to that, to future, I don't know. I just think that movie's really special. What, did you guys like it? I mean, it's funny, it's so unique. Why is that film not more well known? If that film would have been made in Paris in 1953, I think it would be a bigger film, just the fact that it's, I don't know, American, and I think it's truly unique.
It points up another thing that you see in a lot of these short films, and just a lot of short films in general, which is sort of that cross-disciplinary thing. Like, he was a poet, who got it together to make a film. And you see a lot of that, I think, in short films where somebody's a photographer or somebody's a painter or a poet.
And apparently a big, what was the speed of the time? Benadryl?
Benzodrine. They would they would crush them and take
kind
the
of a
little paper out of
Benzodrine
them.
addict.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Used to be able to
got
go
him
and
in
buy
trouble.
like speed, like
Yeah.
for real ass speed over the
Yeah.
counter.
You
The
know.
recorder on the beach, what stage in his life was that? Just like lonely looking for a leper.
Yeah, I love that section. Just the way that guy looks. Beautiful young man. His life was completely pointless.
But that does, like to your point, like all that stuff, like was exactly in the sort of literary stream that those people would have been in, like reading all those books of City Lights, like reading New Directions Press and Grove Press and all that stuff. It's exactly that philosophy.
Yeah, and I think McLean was more of an outcast. He is those characters. He was that pain in the ass friend who didn't have a place to stay, who needed money, who he apparently drove everybody kind of crazy. And I think if he had been more collegial, more part of the hipster group or something, he probably would be, the films would be more well known or something. But I mean, I'm just speculating.
It's often those kind of people, though,
Yeah,
rather than the people
look
who are
what he
like the
leaves
social
behind,
butterflies.
you know,
Yeah.
it's
Like,
it's
think about your
impressive.
weirdest friend.
Yeah, yeah.
That he or she is probably got like some great stuff
yeah,
in him.
yeah. Just needs to be nurtured.
The dialogue is at times, the dialogue just kind of trails off, and you know, it's just the lost poet.
I know. I think it's brilliant, that the narration and the, you know, I think the amount of words in that film, kind of, if you even it out between tonight's program, it's probably average. It just keeps coming, keeps coming. And the black, you know, just long, you know, black frame. You know, had anyone done that before? I mean, that's pretty crazy. It's really bold.
It is. Right over here, yeah.
The second two movies, those are both California productions?
The last two.
All of them, actually, except for The Big Shave.
Yeah, Big Shades, New York. Was Scorpio Rising? Was
It
that?
was L.A., yeah.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Maybe, yeah.
that's right. I don't know why. I just thought that was kind of East Coast, but I don't know why.
Well, Anger was living in,
Yeah,
he
he's
was living in
from,
L.A.
like,
up until
Santa Monica. You know,
he
like
moved to New York in the late 60s. I
late
think.
60s.
Yeah, yeah.
Lars actually met Kenneth Anger one night here in the 90s. He came through, showed a bunch of films, his own prints.
Yeah, that was like a weird thing because like 7 people came to that show and it was Kenneth
Yeah.
Anger showing like all of his own films on 60mm prints
His own
and
prints.
introducing them all and telling the stories about like the people that he had sex with, the people that he had put spells on,
Yeah.
the people that he had
Brackett
hired.
said that was the best. To overhear a conversation between Anger and like Harry Smith or something, it was like, well, it took me 2 months to take off that spell you put on Maya Deren, and I gotta, you know, like they're putting hexes on each other, and they're all masters of the dark arts, you know.
It was exactly like that with Anger
Yeah.
because he would say like, I remember he said like, oh yeah, and of course like Bobby Beausoleil did the music of that, and you know that's the guy. I put the spider in the hole spell on him, and he's been in jail ever since because of the spell that I put on him because of the time he
The
screwed me over and tried to steal my film reels.
Yeah,
And he would tell this whole story that would just be this to him this parenthetical like, oh what a little bit of fluff that I'm sharing, but and everybody else was like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, yeah.
He's like a wizard. He's an intense wizard. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Kenneth Anger was also really super cool, and he showed up and he was wearing like a New York Rangers hockey jersey, and he had taken the R and the S off of it, so it was just anger.
You know, I want his jacket that opens the film that says Scorpio Rising, then it says
I want
Kenneth
the Lucifer
Anger.
Rising
I'm sure-
jacket.
Oh yeah,
That
there's
was
one
really
too. Well, I think they're in his closet right now. Can we go?
Probably. Yeah, let's go
steal 'em?
sneak around and
The dude's almost
Kenneth
90. We could
Anger's
probably
house.
take him. Yeah.
piss him off.
I want that. But Charlie Nathans told me he saw a picture like the night John Lennon got murdered in New York. You know, there's candlelight vigils, and they're right by the Dakotas, standing Kenneth Anger with a candle. Just like, did he put a spell on? I don't know. You know, he's.
I wonder if we got any other because we've been running kind of late. I wonder if anybody else has like a great thing that they want to say or introduce. Yeah, right over here.
Anything, you know.
I just have a question. How were these 5 in particular selected? Was it the diversity or something that you had a personal connection with?
Yeah, just films we showed 30 years ago that I wanted to see again and share with all of you. It's that simple.
We actually part of the process was to go first of all and find out which ones could be secured and
Yeah,
which
that's
ones could
always
actually
the challenge. And thank you, Lars, for when he says how tough it is. That's the grunt work. That's the hard part here.
That's why I'm so special.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think I want to.
Yeah.
So we've got guys here from Toronto, right? Is Toronto? You said. So this guy's from Toronto, and he said, "Oh no, I just heard that like maybe cool things happen in Austin with film stuff," and he just kind of wandered over here. So from the people of Austin, we'd like to give you from University of Texas Press
Yes.
this great cinema and painting book. So take
right.
this, please, our friend.
And let's plug Tuesday night, this
Oh.
coming Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
Not too many days from now, we are showing Buñuel's Los Soldados.
Yeah.
We showed his famous short on Jean Andalou in our Sex and Blasphemy program. So we're back with Buñuel. And it's great. If you haven't seen it, it's just really rare to see it in a theater print.
Yeah, so that's going to screen on Tuesday. And actually, Charles
It's
Ramirez
not exactly a
Burg,
Thanksgiving movie, but
but
you can give thanks you're not growing up in poverty in Mexico in the early 50s.
Yeah, it is
the
hardcore.
hellhole that is depicted in the movie. But it's a great movie. It's one of the best ever.
And that's going to happen. And Charles Ramirez Burg, who is on our board and like one of the most important AFS dudes
And
ever,
one of the most important scholars of Mexican cinema. He
is
will be
the
here.
guy, like who
Yeah.
you want to talk about the golden age of Mexican cinema with, who he wrote the book literally, is going to be here and he's
Yeah.
going to be conducting that discussion with you.
Yeah, he'll have all the intelligent things to say. I'll just be like, I really like the movie. So anyway,
Thank you, everybody,
Yeah,
for being
thanks for being here.
just a
See you
poll, a
soon.
quick poll, real quick though. If we did some more of these kind of shorts programs, like just kind of interspersed, like where we kind of like Rick joined us and we did other selections of shorts, would you show up?
16 millimeter. Hell,
Yeah, all right, great.
We'll get the Super 8 projector out at some point.
So Rick, thank you so much, and all of you guys
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
guys for being here,
Drop
man.
a quarter in
Fun
here for
evening.
Ryan here, please, everybody.
All right.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.